What is going on, guys? Nick Carter here, back with another video. Today we are doing a full tutorial on Davinci Resolve. I've recently switched and I thought I'd do a full edit tutorial on what it's like to edit a full YouTube video. So we're going to do some transitions, some text effects, a little bit of speed ramping, general cutting, color grading, just the basic sort of stuff that you would normally do in an edit for a YouTube video. So opening up Davinci Resolve, you get greeted with this project window. And unlike other editors, this is where you will open all of your projects that you're working on. You will not have like an icon that will sit here on the desktop that you would double click on to open. This is where you will access it. And in here, you can create folders. So as you can see, I like to organize mine via month. And then you can create your new project. I'm going to go into November and I'm going to create a new project. And we're just going to call this editing tutorial, create, and that's going to create the project and open up Davinci Resolve. Now this is the first screen that it will open up to, which is the editing page. It might look a little bit like this, but we'll get into how you can customize the workspace in a little bit. Now Davinci Resolve is a little bit unlike other editors in the fact that the editing space is split up into 6 different sections, and they're all down the bottom here. So starting off with the one on the far left, and this is your media workspace. This is where you can import your footage, review your footage, create your bins, and all that sort of stuff there. Consider this your organization window. And we'll go into more detail when we start editing in a second. Moving over to the right, we have the editing window. And this is obviously where you do all your basic editing, your cutting, fading in and out, speed ramping, all that. This is what you should be familiar with editing softwares. Something new to Davinci Resolve 15, however, is the next one. The next icon is Fusion, and Fusion is a compositing software similar to After Effects, except instead of layer-based, it's node-based. But with Davinci Resolve, it's actually built right in, which is so handy. It means you can do really advanced visual effects inside of the editing software and have it automatically update for you. Now, I do know that Premiere Pro has the dynamic link feature, but that actually requires it to open up After Effects whilst Premiere Pro is opening. And, you know, it is a little buggy. This is built right into the software, no opening anything else. So we will not be touching that today, but it's good to know it's there. There are lots of tutorials online, but I think for the purpose of this tutorial in editing a YouTube video, we're going to ignore the Fusion tab today. Moving on from that, we have the color tab, and this is where we would color grade all our footage. As you can see here, we have all our tools here. And again, we'll get into this later, but all the color grading, LUTs, all that sort of stuff, denoising, a little bit of tracking can be done in this window here. Second to last is the Fairlight audio tab, which is an advanced audio mastering mixer. You can do advanced effects in here, and it is really powerful. And again, great that it is built into Davinci Resolve. And I'm moving on to the last one, which is a little rocket ship. And this is the Deliver window workspace. And this is where you would set your in and out points for your timeline to export into whatever file or format you want, add it to the render queue, and, you know, start rendering. And this layout is the reason why I have switched to Davinci Resolve, is because unlike other editing softwares where you can do color grading and whatnot in the edit window, Davinci Resolve is completely split up into these 6 different workspaces. And so if you want to do color grading, you must do it in the color tab. If you want to do advanced audio effects, you must do it here. It does allow some sort of basic, you know, effects building and color grading and audio and all that in the edit tab, but for the advanced stuff you want to go over here. And I love this because it forces you to focus on the task at hand, really just get to the nitty gritty on what you're doing at the moment. The worst thing I always hate is when you're busy cutting at an edit, trying to build a story, and then you focus on the color of the clip and then you start editing the color because you can. At least here, you're sort of forced to work in little windows. So with that out of the way, we're going to start with the media window. And as you can see, it's sort of divided into a few different sections. So starting left to right, we have our file browser here. And if I click on these files here, this is what's on my drive at the moment. So consider this the computer window. This is what's on the computer. And down here is what's in the project or the media pool. Obviously, we have our viewer for the footage, we have our audio meters, and then our metadata for our clips. So we're going to navigate here, and as you can see, I've got some favorites. These are folders I access quite frequently. So we're going to go to the desktop, and here I have a folder I created earlier called Resolve 15 Tutorials. And in here we have our folder. So we've got Hero Clip folder, exports, and B-roll. My Hero Clip folder generally holds the main video clip for that project, if that's the clip of me talking or whatever it might be. B-roll is, we all know what B-roll is, and exports, this is where I'd save any exports from any piece of software, whether that's Photoshop or Davinci Resolve, whatever, that's where they all. Now we can drag complete folders into the media pool, and that is going to import the footage. And as you can see here, it will notice that the frame rate of the media we are importing is different to the project settings. That is because the default project settings for Davinci Resolve is 1920 by 1080 at 24 frames a second. The footage I've filmed here was on my phone, and I believe it's at 30 frames a second. So what we'll do here is we're going to change the timeline, frame rate, and video format to match, or you can choose not to. For this argument, we're going to. And as you can see, it's brought in not only the footage, but some audio. We'll get into that in a sec. We can also double click into the Hero folder, and like I said, it acts like a file browser. So we don't have to drag the folder, but it's just as easy, you know, but if you want to view the footage beforehand, you can do that. So we're going to drag the B-roll folder down as well. Now you can see we have all our clips here. We got 4 B-roll clips. We've also got the main roll, an audio track, and I'm also going to drag in a quick video preset, which is my intro scene. We're going to chuck that in there as well, and just a little bit of background music. As you can see, it's nice having this in favorites because now I can go through. Let's just find a quick audio track. Oh, that is intense. We'll use that one. So as we see here, now we have our media and we have everything lined up. And if we click on things like we can get the metadata, we can see what frame rate it was filmed at. You can see with the B-roll, I've shot it at 60 frames a second, so it's going to be 2 times slower than the main clip. And this is where we can start creating our bins. So we can create a new bin here, and I'm going to call it the Hero. I'm going to create another bin, and the shortcut for that is Control-Shift-N or Command-Shift-N. We're going to call this the B-roll one, and then we'll create another one. We'll do audio, and now in mask you can see we've got our clips here, and what we're going to do is drag all our clips in. So we're going to drag the main clip of me talking, as you can see here, a little clip of me talking. We've got the audio. As you can see in this clip here, I've attached a lav mic. That's so I can show you how to sync audio, and that's what this bit here is. So we're going to drag them into the Hero bin. I'm going to drag all our B-roll into the B-roll bin, drag the audio into the audio, and we'll drag the intro scene into the B-roll as well. Now we can take this a step further. We can actually click on here into the Hero bin, and we can highlight clips and actually change the color of the clips. So if we want all our Hero clips to be, say, navy, let's just say blue. So now that they will be blue, we can also change our B-roll clips so that they are orange, and let's do audio. We can change that so it will be teal. Now it's always good to color code projects, especially if they're large projects, and you've got multiple devices that you filmed on, so you can easily track down what you are looking for in the timeline. But just here as an example, that is something you can do. And like I said, you can right click on things and you can get a lot of information just by that. You can open up clip attributes and change the frame rate of clips. So while we're there, we're going to go to the B-roll clips. We're going to right click on all of them, go to clip attributes, and you can see the video frame rate is set to 60 frames a second. And if I play back the clip, you're going to notice that it is at normal speed. So we're going to want to change that because we're going to want to play this at slow motion. So we're going to go clip attributes, and we're going to change that to 30 frames a second, the same speed as our timeline. And that will mean that the footage plays a little bit, that's a bad example, plays a little bit slower than was originally filmed. And in your own time, you can go through and have a look at the different formats and options that we have here. Like I said, there are a lot of options to go through. And, you know, we can expand and close different sections here. It's very, very customizable, but still focused on the task at hand, which is organizing our media. So now with all our media imported and sorted, we can move on to the Edit tab. And as you can see here up the top, we have all our folders that we have imported with our bins. In the middle, we have our viewer, and then we have an inspector to the right and our timeline down the bottom. Again, every tab in Davinci Resolve can be ever so slightly customized by opening up different sections. So you can have this be the metadata. So if I click on a clip, you're going to have the metadata, or I can have it as the inspector, which allows you to change properties once it's in the timeline. You also have this icon here. This allows you to drop it down if you prefer the longer list. I personally would rather have a larger timeline, and you can see on the other side, we have that same option. But again, I'd rather have a large timeline. You may or may not have the audio meters available. If that is the case, you just need to click on the mixer icon here. That will bring up the audio mixer, and then just the 3 dots here, you can change it to meters if you want, or you can have it completely off. That is completely up to you. Now, before we start dragging footage into the timeline and cutting it together, something you will want to know is that we have 2 things down here. So if I go home, that is going to bring us to the project manager page, which is the page that we started with. And then we have our project settings. So our project settings are as pretty standard as we know, and we can go through and edit them if we want. We've got general option, all the settings you would want to go and change. And again, before you start, you can do this before or after you've imported your footage. Just keep in mind, if you have changed the footage and conformed it, that, you just need to keep that in mind. But, if I wanted this to be a 4K timeline, I can just go in here and change that to 4K if that's something I wanted to do. But we want to start editing, and we can do a number of different things. We can right click, go timeline, create new timeline. We can drag footage onto the timeline. What I'm going to do is just right click, new timeline, create new timeline. Keep it as that. What we're going to do is we're going to have it 2 video tracks, 2 audio tracks. Gives us a little bit of room to play. We're going to leave it empty, and we're just going to call it our main edit timeline. Create, and it has created our timeline here. Something to note, if you are in a bin and then you drag this down onto a new timeline rather than one you've already created, it will create a timeline in the bin. So something to keep in mind. That's why I like to create the new timeline just outside in the master folder so that it's not hidden. So there is that. So now we've got our timeline down the bottom, and it is split into our video and audio. Pretty standard stuff. If you've ever used Premiere Pro, it'll look very familiar. We do have this dividing line to separate our audio and video tracks. See why we have that in a little bit when we start going into graph editing. All our edit tools are along the top. Again, very similar to every other editor out there. They all have the hotkeys underneath. We have our timeline view options here as well. So rather than talking about it, let's drag a clip down onto the timeline. So if I double click onto this, it's going to open up the source. So all it's done there is close the inspector. So if I open the inspector, it's gone. If I double click it again, it's going to open up this source, and I can go through here and look through my footage. But what we know is that this footage has its own audio track, and I've recorded a separate one, hence the little click there at the beginning. So we're going to want to sync that audio so that it plays nice and clear once it's on the timeline, and it's very easy to do. Like other software, you want to select both the audio track and the video track, right click, and you will have an auto sync audio down the bottom, and you get a few options. So you've obviously got a time code option if that's something you use, and then you have waveform. Now, waveform I find is what majority of people out there are going to be using unless they've got a more professional setup. For both of these options, you have 2. So if you click the based on waveform or timecode one, it will completely overwrite the audio track of the original file, or you can append the new audio file. There are reasons why you would do both, but generally with YouTube videos, you don't want that base audio track, especially if you've done like the clicks at the start, it's going to sync very well. So we're going to do auto sync based on waveform, and nothing happens, and that's sort of annoying, but you just need to trust that it's actually done it. And if I drag this on to the timeline here,
okay, so this video is
it's got very clear audio. But something you notice here is the timeline. We don't have any audio waveforms, and the video track's quite small. And that's where we can, play around with the timeline view options. So we have our minus and plus to zoom in and out, or control minus or command minus and plus to zoom in and out of the timeline. Then under here, we have our view options. So the first icon here is a timeline tab, and that's so that you can open multiple timelines at any one point. If you're working on, say, if you're working on a wedding and you do a timeline for the highlight reel, but then you have a timeline for, say, the ceremony, and then you have a timeline for the reception, that's how you could have it here. So you could open new timeline and, you know, make new edits that way. Then you have the subtitle track, whether or not you want that on or off. Just leave it off because I don't use subtitles. And then this icon here, which is audio waveforms. Now, all of us want audio waveforms, so we can turn that on. And as you can see, we get our waveform back. Then we've got our clip view options. There are a lot of options. Again, the easiest way to learn a software is maybe watch this video first, and then go through and just play around. But this will change how everything looks. And furthermore, you can change the track height and the audio track height. I don't need these thumbnails here, so I tend to use the last one, and then I just bump the audio track height up a little bit and have it like so. And that gives me a nice, clean sort of clip to work with. And as you can see, because we color coded this blue, it is blue in the timeline. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through and edit this footage. So before we do, I'll play it through. I've deliberately filmed this footage to have pauses and ums in it so that, you know, it simulates what a YouTube edit or a video edit would look like. So
okay, so this video is to simulate what it would be like to film a YouTube video with pauses and ahs and ums, and so we're going to cut all that out and make it look good.
So as you can see there, very quick clip, but it, you know, simulates what a real video would be like. You know, you got to correct yourself a lot in post. So the first thing we want to do is get rid of these clicks at the start, which I've done to sync the audio, so we can zoom into the timeline here. And that's where all these tools at the top come in. Davinci Resolve is exactly the same with editing as Premiere Pro or Final Cut. We have the same tools like Blade and Ripple Delete and all that sort of stuff, but it does have a really cool feature called Trim Edit Mode. And this is the one I recommend you use when getting started with Davinci Resolve, because once you've used it for like a day, you'll realize it's super, super quick. This works very similar to how Final Cut Pro works in the sense that I can click here, drag, and as you see, the audio and clip moves along, and basically it is ripple deleting everything behind there. And now I've cut that bit.
Okay, so this video is
but we can undo that, and you can do it multiple ways. So we could get the blade tool, and you know, we could blade there, and we could select that. We could delete it, and then we've got a gap, and delete the gap. Or we could click the footage and we can shift delete, and that is a ripple delete. So there are, you know, your standard editing options, but Davinci Resolve has the trim edit mode, and I love it. So I'm just gonna use that, and we're gonna quickly do that and cut right to the waveform there. Quick note as well is if it's snapping to the playhead, which it is at the moment, N on the keyboard is the fastest way to turn that on and off. And you can see that here is the snap tool going on and off. So we're gonna go through, and we know we got this gap here, but we want this bit of audio. So what we're gonna wanna do is cut. So we can either use the blade tool, or you remember the shortcut, which is Command B or Control B. Then we can play a little bit, pause, and I'm just pressing spacebar to do that. We can go through again. You can, you know, you can shift delete and ripple delete like that. But again, I still recommend that you use the trim edit. So what I do is now that I've cut that footage there, with the trim edit tool selected, shortcut T, you want this little icon here where it's got that rectangle there. You don't want that one. You want that one. You don't want that. So once you've got that icon there, you click and drag, and you can see it tells you how much seconds you're taking off, and we drag it right to there. And what we can do now is do it again. We know we don't want that, so we can trim to there.
R's and ums, and so we're going to cut all that out and make it look good.
And then we can just drag that to there. Now we have
video with pauses and R's and ums.
So now we have our beat the Christmas rush. Now we have our footage cut, but what I've noticed here is this cut here is a little bit too abrupt.
Video with pauses and
So what we want to do is actually extend this one. So with the trim edit tool still selected, you just click on the other side and you just drag. And it gives a little bit of a gap here. So where we have, you know, the lull in speaking. So
video with pauses and
could actually probably be a bit longer. Drag it out a bit more.
Video with pauses and R's and ums. Yeah.
So that's there like so. Now that we've done that.
Okay, so this video is to simulate what it would be like to film a YouTube video with pauses and R's and ums. And so we're going to cut all that out and make it look good.
So we're going to move on to doing our B-roll edit. So we're going to go to our B-roll and we've got our clips here. So we can click in here and we're going to go through the clips. So we're going to want to start, let's start with the tree. Let's start with this tree. And just like every other, like I said, editing softwares are all very similar. We set our in and out points with I and O, or we have our keys here. So I'm just going to select I, I'm going to go forward a little bit, O, and we can either drag this clip from here onto the timeline, and as you can see, what it's going to do is going to put the audio and the clip, or we can choose to just drag the video or the audio. And so this is slow motion. We don't want the audio, so we're just going to drag the video and append it like so. And we've got it there in beautiful slow motion. And it's orange because we color coded it. So we're going to go through and quickly select the other clips. So we're going to just select that and I'm going to go forward a little bit to there. And got to get the chickens because I love the chickens. And we're just going to set the out point to there and drag it in. So now we have our B-roll lined up like so. Let's close that. And that's fine. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to speed ramp transition from this one. We're going to go super quick into this one and then play that out. I think that will look really good and we'll leave this clip alone. So speed ramping, we all do it. It is quite a common editing technique. There are a few ways to do it. Right clicking on a clip gives you options and you'll see that we have retiming controls here. So we can change the clip duration or we can change the speed. So we could speed the whole clip up if we wanted, change how many frames a second it plays for. We've got a whole lot of options. We have retime controls, which is the one we'll use the most, and we've got the retime curve graph. And we'll look into that in a second as well. To close the graph, we've got this icon here when you just click and close. And this is where the audio and video separator comes in handy, as a matter of fact, because it automatically ducks everything there. So the fastest way is Command or Control R. And you can see that here, that's the shortcut it's got there for retime controls, and you do that. And it looks very similar to Final Cut Pro. If you've ever used it, it's got these arrows. They dictate what way the footage is going. So if you reverse the clip, the arrows will point the other way. It's also got the speed that the whole clip plays at, which is 100%. So it's playing at normal speed at the moment. And then you have this little, it's very hard to see, but we have this little drop down arrow right there. And that allows you to add some points. So what we're going to do is we're going to go forward to say here, and we're going to want to add a speed point. So we click on that little arrow, just a normal click, and we add a speed point. What this does is it now splits the clip up. So we have this section playing at 100% and this section playing at 100%. And we can speed or slow down this section. So if I click on this black dot there, change speed, we can change it to 800% the normal speed, play that through, and it will speed up at the end there. And that is really a very quick, very quick speed ramp. And we want to do the same to the next clip. So we Control, Command, whatever. You do the R. And what we want is the start of it to be quick and then the last of it to be slow. So we click on the black arrow, add speed point, and then change the speed like so. And now we have the two clips which speed into each other like so, but it's a little bit rough. And that's because these are hard speed cuts. It's going from 100% to 800% in the matter of one frame, and we want that to fade. So to do that, we want to right click on the footage, and we want to go to retime curve. And this doesn't look right. And that's because it's retiming the frame, which is a little bit complicated, but what we want to do is this drop down arrow. Like I said, it's very intuitive, but the drop down arrow here will give you a lot of different options. We just want retime speed. So we click retime speed and turn that off. And so now this frame here is the speed of what the clip is doing. And we can drag lines up and down depending on how fast or slow we want the clip to be, to adjust the keyframe here. And it is a little bit hard to find, but it, you know, you just got to click around. Once you've got it, all we do is click this one here, and it changes from a linear point to a, I think it's a Bezier, I don't know. Anyway, it does this nice fade in and out, and we can change the handles here to increase the fade, make it more dramatic. So what we're going to do is make it nice, and I think maybe a little bit more dramatic than that. I'm going to do like that. Yeah, probably a bit more like so. Yeah, we'll leave it like that. And to get out of it, you hit the X on the speed change, and then you get the graph, and you can close the graph like so. And we're going to do the exact same on the next clip. So right click, retime curve. We're going to want to zoom in a bit so we get the options. Change it from frame to speed. I'm going to find that point, just click on it there, make it like that. Like so, fade it in, and now we have a little bit of a speed ramp, you know, rough, quick and rough, but it does the trick. Get out of that, get out of the graph. And we bring the last clip in. So now what we've done is we've synced audio, cut a clip together and cutting out, you know, the ums and ahs. We've also now done a little bit of a speed ramp in the B-roll, and last few things left to do is we want to maybe add a transition between these two. Transitions are kept up here. So we have our effects library, our edit index, which is sort of like a history of edits for the item that you have selected. And then you have a sound library. We won't touch on the edit index or the sound library. We just want to look at effects. And we have this is where we have titles, generators, audio transitions, video transitions. It's all here. So we're just going to go to video transitions. And as you can see, we've got a whole bunch of different transitions. We're just going to do a cross dissolve for this one. I'm going to click and drag onto the clip until you see that little box, and you've got your transition. So if I play this through, fades in like so, and we can adjust the length or the shortness of that transition, make it nice and quick. You can also click on it and delete it, maybe do a dip to color dissolve. I'm not sure how that'll look weird, but yeah, that's just, you know, or we can do an iris one, lots and lots of different transitions. Oh, that looks kind of cool. Bit of a Star Trek-y vibe going there. So we can do that, and now we've got our transition. Maybe we want to put a bit of text so we can get our titles, and there are a few options here. Let's just do a normal text, dragging onto the timeline, resizing. This is all very similar to how all other editors work. And if we click on the text, as you can see, we have all our options in the inspector. Again, this is pretty standard stuff. So I love chickens. We can change the font to whatever we want it to be. That looks pretty cool. Change the size. We can also fade it in and out if we wanted, but we'll leave it as. So we've got a title, we've got a transition, we've got our edited clip. Now we just need music. So we go back to our media pool at the top here, go to our audio, and we've got our audio. We're just going to drag the whole clip down, zoom in. What I might do for the sake of just this video is going to drag this over just so that we have some, you know, some big beats to start with. We're also going to resize it to the end here. Now to do a quick fade in and out, you can see we have these handles here. You have these on every clip available. If you zoom in, if we zoomed in on video tracks, you have them there. On a video track, it is opacity. On an audio track, it is the audio level. You can control the main audio level by going to the clip volume, but for now, let's just do a fade out, which will fade the audio. Oh, a bit buggy there for a sec. So as you see, it fades out, and we can control the kind of fade if you want it. So if you want it to be like a weird, or you can make it a very, very slow fade. So we'll leave it like that. You can go to the other side, make a quick fade there, just a very quick one. And now we have audio. Totally doesn't fit the mood. But you can see a problem is the audio is too loud. think it suits the chickens though. So what we want to do is we want to duck the audio, the song, whilst I'm speaking. Now we could go through and, you know, create some keyframes by option clicking and all this sort of stuff and, you know, ducking it that way. So I'm just option clicking to do that. But there is a better way. So we're going to actually move on to Fairlight Audio now to do that. Going over to Fairlight. And as you can see here, looks a little bit different. So top right, we have our video clip, and it's small because we don't really need to watch. We're dealing with music. Down the bottom, we have our tracks. So we have audio 1 and audio 2 and all these other options here. So we're just going to have a very quick look on how to easily duck audio. And it's all done with the dynamics. So as you can see here, we have A1, A2. That refers to the audio track 1 and audio track 2 there. So what we want to do is we want to double click on the dynamics box here for audio 1. And calm down, you know, it looks intimidating, but it is very easy. All we need to do here is click 2 buttons. We want to click compressor, and then we want to click send. So that's going to send the signal from audio 1, and it affects the entire track, not just the ones you have selected. It is the entire track. It's going to send that audio to a track to listen to, and that is going to be audio 2. So we're going to double click on that one. And again, 2 buttons, compressor, and this time instead of send, we're going to do listen. So that basically says audio track 2 is going to listen to the audio sent from 1 and going to control the levels. So if we listen to it, we can't hear anything. And that's because we need to control the threshold on the dynamics for audio track 2. And so if we drop the threshold down, as you can see, it's controlling how much the audio is ducked. So if we listen to it without, we play it back here. We turn the compressor on, listen still selected. We drop the threshold down to -46.
Film a YouTube video with pauses and R's and ums.
So you could probably drop it a lot lower than that.
Okay, so this video is to simulate what it would be like to film a YouTube video with pauses and R's and ums, and so we're going to cut all that out and make it look good.
And you can notice that there is a little weird bit here where it goes between these 2 audio tracks.
Pauses and R's.
It's because it is, every time there is a little bit of silence in the speaking track, it bumps the volume up. And we can just adjust the hold here. Again, you just play around with these settings, but it's basically, this is how long it's going to hold the 0, like when it dips audio, how long it holds it for. So if I try that now.
Okay, so this video is to simulate what it would be like to film a YouTube video with pauses and R's and ums, and so we're going to cut all that out and make it look good. Pauses and
probably go a little bit longer, to be honest.
Video with pauses and
there we go. And now if we listen to this,
videos to simulate what it would be like to film a YouTube video with pauses and R's and ums, and so we're going to cut all that out and make it look good.
Yes, it is still quite loud, but now it automatically ducks, and that changes over in the editing tab.
This video is to simulate what it would be like to film a YouTube video with pauses and R's and ums, and so we're going to cut.
So now that we've ducked the audio, we just do a little bit of color grading and pretty much done. So to color grade, we go over to our color tab, and you can see it's populated with all our clips. One thing to note is every time you make a cut on a clip, it is going to add another clip here for you to color grade. And that's because when you color grade, you want to have more control. You don't necessarily want to color grade the entire clip exactly the same. But I find for YouTube videos, you kind of do. So to avoid having to copy and paste the same color correction to the exact same clip 3 times, we go back to the edit tab. We can select those cuts that we made, select them all, right clicking on it, and create a new compound clip. And we just create that main clip and go create. And now we have just one section. We can always right click on it and open in timeline, and that's going to give us a separate timeline with the cuts, and we can, you know, edit this and it will continue to edit here. So now we've got that in one compound clip. We go back to color, we can see we've just got the one clip here. So every color correction we make will affect the entire clip, which is fine for what we're doing. So the color editing tab can be very, very intimidating. I'm going to show you the 3 windows to worry about to begin with. So obviously we have our footage window, and that's just going to play through the whole clip. And as it goes from that, it'll switch to that clip, the next clip, etc., etc. Every clip, once you have the clip selected, that is the clip that you are editing. To the right of that, we have our nodes. Try not to worry about them too much. It's not as intimidating as you think, especially in the color editing tab. Down to the bottom, we have all our options, and that is intense, but the ones you really want to look at: color wheels, color curves, and the key. We use the key for the LUTs. Color curves we'll use for contrast, and color wheels we use to control the majority of everything else. And then we have our waveform, vector scope, all these lovely, lovely things that we are used to in other editing softwares. So to create an edit, we're going to select this node here, and we're going to adjust it. So using, and this isn't a color correcting tutorial at all, but the way it works is you can adjust the tint of the gain or the highlight by doing that, again with the midtones and again with the shadows, and you can reset every parameter just by clicking the reset button there. You have the overall intensity as this slider down the bottom there, and then you can control individual contrast, saturation, all that sort of stuff there. So I'm just going to do a very quick edit in this one node selected here. So I'm going to drop the highlights a little bit so that they're under, drop the shadows a little bit, just a little bit, and maybe drop them, bring the midtones up just a little bit. And we can use Command or Control D to hide our edit. And you can see we haven't really done a whole lot. You look around here, you can see a little bit of a change, but not a lot. And that's just Command D that I'm doing. Then now what we want to do is name this. So if we right click on this node, we can node label, and we're just going to call this base for base correction. Now we want to create another node to create an extra edit. I recommend creating a new node for every edit that you do. So for the base correction, you want a node for that, then a node for the contrast, a node for the LUT. You kind of get the point. So we can go color, nodes, add serial node, and really when you're starting off, just use this one. Don't worry about the others for now, just the serial node. And obviously we have the shortcut for that. So we hit that, adds another node. Right clicking on that, let's just do contrast for this one. And we want to go to the curves, and we can just do our little S curve in here. Again, this is not a color correction tutorial. Bring that up a little bit. And at any point, Command or Control D will turn on and off the edit that we've done. And you can see it adds a little bit of contrast there in my face. Creating another serial node, so Option S or whatever it is on Windows, we're going to create a LUT. So we're going to call this one LUT. And to add a LUT, we can do it by going to the LUTs window over here with this node selected. So if I have this node selected, it'll apply the LUT to this one. It's nice to keep it organized by clicking that one there. And it comes with a bunch of LUTs built in. I'm going to use my purchase one from Peter McKinnon. We're going to do Kodak Killer. And as you can see, if I click on it, it's going to give you a nice preview of what it looks like. So we can actually pick whichever one we think looks best. I'm going to do Kodak Killer. So I'm going to double click, and you'll see that it's applied that there. But that is a very intense look. So to change that, we need to go to our key, which I mentioned before. I know this is a lot of information, but like I said, the only ones as you start off is the key, curves, and color wheels. Don't worry about the rest for now. And all we want to do is the key output. And what you see here is, consider it like the opacity. So as I drop that down, you notice that the effect of the LUT has changed. I can drag that up, and you can see the effect change. So we're gonna, it's still intense at 0.5, but we'll leave it at 0.5. And I can always turn on and off to see the change that we've made. You can see here that the clip number has a color ring around it now. That's to say that yes, you have now color corrected this clip. These ones don't have anything because we haven't made any edits. The moment I make an edit, it changes color. But what I want to do is just copy and paste this to the rest of them. So the easiest way to do that is select all the clips you want to copy the color grade to, right click the color graded clip, and you'll see an apply grade. It's weird that it works this way, but by doing so, it now has applied that grade to the entire clips that we've now edited, and you'll see that in 3, 2, 1. And that is color grading. You can go into so much more depth, but it does require a separate tutorial, but that is sort of how I, will do a YouTube video. Again, you got one node there. With the node selected, you go color, nodes, add serial node, that adds your next one, and then you add your next one, and that is easy. Don't need to do any more than that. And all the color is now edited in this main one here. As you can see, it carries all the changes over for you. So we've now color graded the clip. We've done a little bit of audio editing, a little bit of a speed ramp with a transition and title. We've pretty much edited our clip. All we need to do now is go to the deliver tab. This is where we can control not only the section that we want to render out, which generally you'll do the whole thing, but maybe you only want to render this first section. And that is dictated by here. So we render by the in and out, or we just render the entire timeline. It's up to you. And we can select our render settings up the top here. So for YouTube, obviously you're going to want to use the YouTube setting, and you can use the drop down arrow to do 720, 1080 or 2160, controlling the name of the file, the location of the file, and you can also go into extra details if you want to. I find the base settings are very, very good. And again, if you're uploading to Facebook or any other sort of website, this is the YouTube setting is the one you're going to want to do. It compresses the file quite a bit. Vimeo compresses it a lot less, and you're going to end up with larger files. So YouTube is generally the better one for YouTube, hence why it's set up that way. So we're going to name this our editing tutorial. Browse to locations. We're going to browse to the folder on the desktop, and I've got my exports. We're going to save it to there. Add to render queue, and now we have it here, and I can just start render, and by clicking that, it will render it out, and it's all done. So now when I go to the desktop, we got our exports, editing tutorial. Now we have our file completely edited and everything all done and dusted. So there you guys have it. That is a quick tutorial on how to edit a YouTube video in Davinci Resolve. It is very hard to get it all into one video because it is a very complicated piece of software. It does take a bit of time to get used to it, but by following the steps in this video, you'll have the base knowledge that you'll need to create your very own YouTube video, very basic edit. I look forward to doing more tutorials on Davinci Resolve and going more into, say, the color tab, the fusion tab, and the fairlight audio tab. But like I said, this is just for the basics that you need to know to create a edit for YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, guys, hit that thumbs up button down below and make sure to subscribe for more videos.